House Republicans hosted a hearing with Stephanie Turner and the chairman of USA Fencing in the wake of a now viral incident in which Turner took a knee rather than compete against a transgender athlete. During the hearing, Republicans tried to build their case for banning transgender athletes from women's sports. Here's what happened. Republicans shared a letter they received from an Olympic fencing coach that stated transgender women have advantages over biological women, including body size, reach, shoulder width, muscle development, explosive strength, and recovery capacity. They cited a UN report that found women have been severely injured competing against transgender athletes and that testosterone suppression does not eliminate competitive advantages. They also pointed to a New York Times Ipsos poll from January that found 79% of Americans believe trans athletes should be banned from women's sports. Despite claiming the science and public sentiment backs their point of view, they still use divisive rhetoric to describe transgender athletes.
Now, you're going to hear from our Democrat colleagues who are going to fight for these mentally ill biological men to continue beating women and stealing their competitions, stealing their medals, and stealing their national championships.
Democrats say Republicans are politicizing the issue. They pointed out that the hearing was being hosted by the Department of Government Efficiency Subcommittee within the House Oversight Committee, which is in charge of ensuring the executive branch and federal departments follow the law and do their duty.
And this hearing literally has nothing to do with that. In fact, it has nothing to do with anything that falls under the Oversight and Accountability Committee's jurisdiction.
As for Turner, she says there are 200 self-declared transgender athletes within USA Fencing, and she has long opposed competing against them.
It's unbelievably demeaning to female fencers to put down the differences between men and women and any woman's loss to a man as a skill issue, or that a woman simply needs to work harder.
The chairman of USA Fencing said the organization allows mixed bouts. He said gender does not provide an advantage when it comes to strategy and technique, and that other perceived inequalities are not what they appear.
Those bouts show that mixed gender competition, in fencing at least, does not pose any significant safety risks above and beyond single-gender fencing competition. The same is true for fencing involving transgender participation. Additionally, while some attributes more common in men, such as height and physical strength, can certainly confer an advantage in a fencing bout, women more commonly exhibit other advantageous traits such as flexibility and agility.
Democrats also brought in the CEO of the National Women's Law Center, who said transgender athletes can be subject to discrimination and need protection in sports.
For example, denying trans kids the chance to find teammates who have their back, that's harmful. School officials secretly investigating girls' gender to make sure that they are feminine enough to play, that is harmful and that is dangerous.
23 states have laws that restrict transgender athletes from competing in sports leagues that do not match with their birth gender. There are efforts to pass laws like that in all 50 states.
Shalom, giving all praises and glory to our power Yahweh. Bahasham Yahweh Shah, Bahasham Rachak, without double honors to the apostles and bishops and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the whole free elect of the tabernacles of David scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be, wherever you may be. To you I say Shalom, Yeshua, Shalom. Right, this is going to be 10 seconds, all right? Just want to say something real quick. Back into another world news with commentary. So there's a clip right after this we're going to play about South African so-called white, Edomites, right? White South African refugees supposedly coming to America. All right, and I have the script on the screen because it says which one I want. Oh. Okay, yeah. Knowest thou of Job 20:4? Knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth, that the triumphing of the wicked is short and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment. All right, because one for one, with this terror situation, shipments, supposedly, not doing so great. Why are they pouring more people? Why are you pouring more people into your country? All right, that's going to shorten up food even more. The more food you constantly bring to the country, knowing there's, probably going to be a shortage happen soon. You're bringing more people to the country, and in particular with this news article here, or this clip here, South African white refugees, right? And then on the other hand, you have all this talk about deportation, sending this person there, that person there. You got ICE running around, icing people, right? But, well, what about these white refugee South Africans? You call them refugee to make it sound sad, right? They're not even refugees. And probably not even supposed to be in Africa in the first place down there. Okay, with the Bantu people, right? You know. But anyway, so all this deportation about this person, that person, which is mostly, you know, geared towards the tribes. But so what about these people? They're coming from Africa. What does Africa have to do with America? Or is it because they're white or Edomites, so-called white? So yeah, it's just hypocrisy with Babylon. Okay, so it's just something I thought was very interesting. I wanted to point out, but that's pretty much all I had to say. So hey, enjoy the rest of the news. Shalom.
The first group of white Afrikaans-speaking South Africans is reportedly due to arrive in the United States early next week. They claim to be persecuted in their home country and are being granted refugee status by President Donald Trump. The US leader in February signed an executive order halting all aid to South Africa, accusing the government of doing terrible things to Afrikaners. He described them as the victims of unjust racial discrimination, saying their land was being taken away from them. Trump's views appear to stem from a recent law that allows land expropriation without compensation in extremely rare cases. South African officials say the policy is part of efforts to address land ownership disparities that are one of the starkest legacies of apartheid, and that to date, no land has been seized. Many prominent Afrikaners and other South Africans have shouted down Trump's statements, saying they're patently false.
Chi dice che sia il figlio dell'uomo? Pensando alla scena su cui... But I want to repeat the words from the responsorial psalm. I will sing a new song to the Lord because he has done marvels. And indeed, not just with me, but with all of us, my brother cardinals, as we celebrate this morning, I invite you to recognize the marvels that the Lord has done, the blessings that the Lord continues to pour out upon all of us. Through the ministry of Peter, you have called me to carry that cross and to be blessed with that mission. And I know I can rely on each and every one of you to walk with me as we continue as a church, as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers, to announce the good news, to announce the gospel.
Altri Geremia o qualcuno dei profeti.
Dico questo prima di tutto per me, come successore di Pietro, mentre inizio questa mia missione di vescovo della Chiesa che è in Roma, chiamata a presiedere nella carità la Chiesa universale, secondo la celebre espressione di Sant'Ignazio di Antiochia. Egli, condotto in catene verso questa città, luogo del suo imminente sacrificio, scriveva ai cristiani che vi si trovavano: allora sarò veramente discepolo di Gesù Cristo quando il mondo non vedrà il mio corpo. Si riferiva all'essere divorato dalle belve nel circo, e così avvenne, ma le sue parole richiamano in senso più generale un impegno irrinunciabile per chiunque nella Chiesa eserciti un ministero di autorità. Sparire perché rimanga Cristo, farsi piccolo perché Lui sia conosciuto e glorificato, spendersi fino in fondo perché a nessuno manchi l'opportunità di conoscerlo e amarlo. Dio mi dia questa grazia oggi e sempre con l'aiuto della tenerissima intercessione di Maria, Madre della Chiesa.
Port Sudan came under drone attack again on Friday, May 9, the sixth consecutive day of strikes in the coastal city that has become a vital hub for humanitarian aid and a refuge for civilians. The attacks, reportedly carried out by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, targeted key infrastructures.
The Secretary General warns that this major escalation could lead to large-scale civilian casualties and further destruction of critical infrastructure. The Secretary General is alarmed at the expansion of the conflict into an area that has served as a place of refuge for large numbers of people displaced from the capital, Khartoum, and other areas. The Secretary General reiterates that all parties to the conflict must comply with their obligations under international humanitarian law. They must not direct attacks against civilians and civilian objects, must take all feasible precautions to avoid and in any case to minimize incidental civilian casualties.
The UN is urging all parties to uphold international humanitarian law and refrain from targeting civilians. With aid routes now threatened, the crisis in Sudan risks deepening even further.
Indian Armed Forces targeted air defense radars and systems at a number of locations in Pakistan. Indian response has been in the same domain with the same intensity as Pakistan.
It was directed towards non-civilian, non-military targets and confined to terrorist camps.
And we are starting off with developments just coming in. Northern Railways announcing that 5 special trains will be run from parts of Jammu and Kashmir back to Delhi for those who are stranded. That's the latest coming in at this point. This decision coming in after several airports have been shut amid the growing attacks from Pakistan. 5 special trains will be run from Jammu, Udhampur, Katra. Listen in.
माननीय रेल मंत्री श्री अश्विनी वैष्णव जी द्वारा स्थिति की समीक्षा की गई और कई सारे एयरपोर्ट्स बंद होने के कारण जो वहां स्ट्रैंडेड लोग थे उनको वहां से निकालने के लिए स्पेशल ट्रेन चलाने के दिशा निर्देश दिए गए। इस क्रम में आज जम्मू क्षेत्र से जम्मू, उधमपुर, कटरा ये सभी जो जम्मू क्षेत्र के स्टेशन हैं यहां से दिल्ली, नई दिल्ली के लिए 5 special train चलाई जा रही हैं।
Innocent blood was shed in Pahalgam. India's response was swift, but few understand the shadowy hand that was stoking the flames across the border. That hand belongs to General Asim Munir, Pakistan's army chief, a man whose rise is steeped in religious zeal, personal vendetta, and a dangerous brand of Islamist nationalism. In fact, Munir is not just another uniformed strongman. He is the architect of Pakistan's latest surge in hostility. The jihadi general who wears his ideology on his sleeve and wields it as a weapon. Munir's story is one of ambition, calculation and cold fury. Imran Khan once cleared his appointment as the head of the notorious Pakistan spy agency, the Inter-Services Intelligence, ISI, but then the Pakistan Prime Minister sacked him 9 months later. After learning of Munir's ambitious agenda, Pakistan has been under direct military rule for approximately 32 years. In the 75 years of its existence, for every Pakistan Prime Minister, there is always a clear and present danger of a coup by the military. Munir never forgot the humiliation when the army orchestrated Khan's downfall in 2022. Munir's ascent was unstoppable, and within months, he had his former boss jailed, proving that crossing him comes at a steep price. But Munir's real power lies not in political intrigue, in his ability, instead, to fuse faith and force. Raised in a deeply religious family, he studied in Rawalpindi's madrasas. Munir is the first Pakistani army chief since Zia-ul Haq to openly invoke Islamist nationalism as state policy. He peppers his speeches with Quranic verses, recites prayers in public, casts himself as the savior of Pakistan's Islamic identity. His rhetoric on Kashmir is incendiary, invoking the two-nation theory and promising eternal struggle, a signal to every jihadi proxy that the old playbook is back. Munir's fingerprints are all over the current escalation. His provocative speeches before the Pahalgam massacre set the tone. Under his command, the army has doubled down on pushing terrorists across the border into India. Under his command, a rattled Pakistani army is unleashing heavy artillery on Indian civilians along the LOC. Munir's rise is a warning. He is not a leader. He is a tactician who says India is not a neighbor but an existential enemy. The reason is his personal ambitions to keep fueling trouble, keep portraying India as an enemy, and in the process, try and grab more power, even at the cost of the destruction of his country. Under his command, Pakistan's military doctrine is once again shaped by jihad. It is not the sign of a professional military. The world should take note. Asim Munir is not just fueling tensions, he is building a fire that could consume Pakistan itself.
A major security flashpoint came into focus for India in the Pakistani drone attack on Thursday, where hours after India's air defense system successfully fended off the attack at 36 different military and civilian sites. The Indian authorities have said that initial investigation has confirmed that Pakistan had used Turkish-made drones in the attacks. Now, the drones have been identified as Turkish-manufactured Songar UAVs. Pakistan deployed them in large numbers, marking not just a tactical provocation, but a pretty concerning escalation in regional drone warfare.
भारतीय सशस्त्र बलों ने काइनेटिक व नॉन काइनेटिक साधनों का उपयोग करके इनमें से कई ड्रोन्स को मार गिराया। इतने बड़े पैमाने पर हवाई घुसपैठों का संभावित उद्देश्य वायु रक्षा प्रणालियों का परीक्षण करना और खुफिया जानकारी इकट्ठा करना था। ड्रोन के मलबे की फोरेंसिक जांच की जा रही है। प्रारंभिक रिपोर्ट्स से पता चलता है कि वे तुर्की के असीस गार्ड सोंगर ड्रोन्स हैं। इसके उपरांत रात में पाकिस्तान के एक सशस्त्र यूएवी ने भटिंडा सैन्य स्टेशन को निशाना बनाने की कोशिश भी की।
The drone attack has also signaled a bigger worry for India, indicating the growing strategic bonhomie between Islamabad and Ankara. Now, Turkey has openly criticized India's Operation Sindoor, besides siding with Pakistan on key diplomatic and security issues. The Songar UAV that's developed by the Turkish defense firm Aziz Guard is a compact yet lethal platform weighing about 45 kilograms at takeoff. It can stay airborne for nearly 25 to 30 minutes, operate within a 10-kilometer range, and fly at altitudes of up to 2.8 kilometers above sea level. What makes it especially dangerous is its integrated weapon payload, including a mounted machine gun and an optional grenade launcher, making it capable of some precise remote-controlled attacks. The Songar drone is capable of autonomous strikes and swarm operations. It's also a clear message about the shifting alliances, the shared technologies and the use of cutting-edge systems to challenge regional stability. However, India's layered air defense grid, including systems such as Akash, MR-SAM and S-400, effectively have managed to neutralize the threat, while also highlighting the technological sophistication of the use of armaments in the region.
And the White House press secretary has reiterated Washington's remarks on the tensions during a press conference, during a press briefing just a short while back, saying that the administration wants to see the situation de-escalate. Listen to this.
Saying that the Secretary of State And of course, now our national security advisor as well, Marco Rubio, has been very much involved in. The president has expressed he wants to see this de-escalate as quickly as possible. He understands these are two countries that have been at odds with one another for decades, long before President Trump was here in the Oval Office. However, he has good relationships with the leaders of both countries, and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, I spoke to him just yesterday. He has been in constant communication with the leaders of both countries, trying to bring this conflict to an end.
The statement comes after Marco Rubio dialed his counterpart in New Delhi and the Prime Minister of Pakistan as well. US Secretary of State asked both India and Pakistan to de-escalate and urged Shehbaz Sharif and Dr. S. Jaishankar to go for dialogue to de-escalate tensions. Apart from what can be considered a common appeal, Marco Rubio had a different message for both India and Pakistan. Speaking to his Indian counterpart, Rubio said the US stands with New Delhi in its fight against terrorism. Meanwhile, to Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Rubio said Pakistan should end support for terror groups.
A massive military parade was held in Moscow to mark the 80th anniversary of Russia's most important secular holiday, the Soviet defeat over Nazi Germany in World War II. This year, more than 20 foreign leaders watched the Red Square event alongside Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is the highest number of foreign guests at a Victory Day parade since Putin sent troops into Ukraine in 2022. They included the Chinese leader Xi Jinping and the leaders of Brazil, Serbia and Slovakia. Security was particularly high. The capital has seen travel chaos over the past few weeks due to Ukrainian drones targeting the city. Friday's parade featured more than 11,000 troops and 180 military vehicles, including tanks used in Russia's campaign in Ukraine. The show ended with a flypast of Russian fighter jets trailing the colours of the national flag.
Iran has once again released a video of its underground missile city, packed with drones. Now, in this video broadcast by the Iranian state media, Iran's Revolutionary Guards Chief Hossein Salami has issued a warning to US and Israel. IRGC chief can be seen walking among the drones placed in an underground facility. The video also shows Iran's drone arsenal. Now, where this underground city is located, that location is not made public by Iran. Hossein Salami has vowed to open the gates of hell if Israel and US venture to attack Iran. The video also includes a footage that Iranian state TV claims are aerial shots taken with the Muhajir 6 drone of the American aircraft carrier USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. Fourth round of nuclear talks between Iran and US is likely to take place over the weekend in Oman. Now, with Iranian state media pointing to May 11th as a probable date. As both countries continue to find a diplomatic way out, they both maintain a strong offensive posture against each other. The US recently sent its B-2 bombers to its Pacific outpost in Diego Garcia, an airbase that could be used for strikes in West Asia. On negotiations with Iran, Donald Trump has made it clear that Tehran will have to give up its nuclear weapon ambitions.
This is really crunch time, I would tell you, for Iran and for their country. This is a very important time for Iran. This is the most important time in the history of Iran for Iran, and I hope they do what's right. I'd love to see a peace deal, a strong peace deal. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.